Welcome to session 14. This will be about Nbc air filtration. So the concept for filtering nuclear, biological, and chemical agents comes about usually in multiple stages. Usually the first layer is some type of HEPA filter which removes particles. It should be 99.99%. You can use 99.97% filters, but they won't filter out the biological agents. Activated carbon, and then after that comes TETA carbon. This should be a D, by the way. This is TETA carbon, and TETA carbon is what removes the chemical warfare agents. And after that, sometimes we used to have ultraviolet light. It's good to have removable trays, because what happens with filter elements, especially for a nuclear field, is the elements become radioactively hot and they have to be discarded. So because they're a little bit hot, I usually put depending on the design of the shelter, I usually put the air filtration systems in the entranceway so they're far away, so you don't have to change them right away. You can let them decay. You can let the radiation decay. These are some of the standards that are used for a proper Nbc air filter. The military has this and a whole lot of other standards, but these are the basics. ASHRAE, American Society of Heating and Refrigeration, ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, all these mil specs. So this is what goes into a properly designed and rated Nbc shelter filtration system. And the noise is a factor. If you're in it for a long time, noise can be a real factor, especially with some of the hand cranks out there. I've seen some companies that are selling hand cranks that are just really loud. But this gives you a reference point, and usually I try and keep it right around 45 to 60. If you can do lower than that, great. But if you're listening to it 24 hours a day, this is important. And there's two different types of systems that you can use. They're both effective. System one, you've got a pre-filter, 99.99%, activated carbon, TETA carbon. System two, you got pre-filter, just TETA carbon and the HEPA. And the micron rating, 1 micron, is 0.00004 inches, or 4/100,000ths of an inch, just to give you a reference point. This is a 600 CFM system, and the fundamentals of air filtration for Nbc is you always put the housing, the actual air filtration housing, under negative pressure. So if you ever have a leak, you're pulling in uncontaminated air. But the positive pressure, the shelter is under positive pressure. So that is the standard, and I agree with that standard. Negative pressure on the filter housing, positive pressure in the shelter. And as a reference point, here's some common here's some sizes of common contaminants out there, and these are really small. If you remember that 1 micron is 4/100,000ths of an inch, this is a reference point. This is all in POP, by the way, so don't feel you have to memorize this. This is all in POP. The reason why TETA, triethylene diamine, works is because it has a lot of surface area, and it's been impregnated with copper, chromium, silver, and it's specific. This is made by Calgon. You can buy something similar to it from China and India and Russia. You probably need a permit from the Department of Defense to actually get that out of the country, but it's available. And the way that this works, when you have a sponge, and a sponge soaks up water, that's absorption, AB. when you have a gas that's absorbed, it's AD like in dog, delta, uh, adsorption, and that's how they work. Water is absorbed by a sponge, but gases are absorbed by carbon granules, which is adsorption. So that's how the carbon filters and the TETA carbon works. And here's what makes it work as far as quantity. 1 quart of carbon contains almost 9 million square feet of surface area, and that's what makes it work. That plus the affinity for certain gases. TETA carbon has an affinity for the chemical warfare agents. The problem in the industry, and I've seen this a lot, and I'm called into court a lot to testify in some of these things, is there are some companies out there selling Nbc Air Filtration units that have no TETA carbon, or it's not all TETA carbon, or the residence time is not listed. The minimum residence time is about 0.35 seconds. You can actually go down to 0.25, but you have no tolerance there. So you really want to shoot for 0.35 seconds. And the pounds per 100 cubic feet a minute of air is not listed. So right now, for a small family, the cost of TETA carbon for a single family shelter is about $5,000 to $6,000. So if you see air filtration units for Nbc air filtration units that are for sale for $2,500, you know you got a problem. And you can figure this out yourself. It's not all that complicated. Residence time, RT, is the carbon bed depth in inches times 60. That's divided by the velocity, feet per minute, which is down here, times 12, and it'll give you the residence time in seconds. Most of the ones that I saw that were selling for $2,500, $3,500 have a residence time of 0.05. I mean 1/6, 1/7, 1/8 of what is required to actually filter the air. So be very careful about that. Gas masks. Gas masks are good for 1 to 3 hours. They can get you to a shelter, but you can't wear them very long, especially in hot weather. They really start to put a lot of pressure on your face. If you're a little older, if you're a little overweight, if you've been smoking, this is only used for a very short period of time. The military troopers that are out there that are trained in it, they have trouble going 8 hours in a day, especially in hot weather. So this can only get you there. You can't wear this 24 hours a day. The other issue is that with any air filtration unit, you have to change some of these filters. Now, some of the filters on the market have a pre-filter which you can change, and you may not have much radioactive fallout getting into the actual TETA carbon. But HEPA filters or the pre-filter become radioactively hot. All the fallout is down, for any nuclear weapon, all the fallout is down after 24 hours. That's it. So that first 24 hours is when you're going to get contaminants in your air filtration system. You can check that with a radiation survey meter. But at some point, when you think it's a little too hot, and there's a table in POP that'll tell you that, then you have to somehow discard that. The other issue is the shelter should be under positive pressure because there's no filter on the outlet. So when you put the Nbc air filtration unit under negative pressure, you're sucking air through it, but you're pressurizing the shelter. This is one unit, which is a good unit. The military won't use this, but for small families, this is a fine unit. It's about $10,000. This is the Air unit. There's 2 or 3 others out there. There's a hand crank on it. It's electric. It's a hand crank, and I think it's a good unit. There's no way to change there's a pre-filter here, and you can change that, and that may be all you have to do, and maybe that's fine, but you can't change the TETA carbon down here. You don't have that ability. Hand cranks I like. The problem with hand cranks is they don't work for the handicapped, they don't work for the elderly, they don't work for the children, they don't work for the injured or sick, this is a significant portion of the people that are in these shelters. So that's why the military is not excited about this. This is not used by the military or corporations in business continuity plans. In a real, in a more sophisticated Nbc Air Filtration unit, you can change everything. And what I always use is called a bag in, bag out Nbc filtration, BIBO. There are different filter elements here. You can change these. Here's the blower. It's under negative pressure. Puts the shelter under positive pressure. This is what I use almost 100% of the time. This is not a $10,000 unit. This is a $20,000 unit. And you've got these valves that can be turned and shut these valves off so you can change. This is the incoming pre-filter, and this is your main TETA filter. So you can take this off, you can change this, you can replace it, you can get your TETA carpet out, you can replace it. This is a different approach to it. This is stainless steel gas tight welding. It's tested, it's used in radioactive, toxic, and nuclear power plants. This is how it's put together. There's a pre-filter. This is called a bag in, bag out. You see this surface here that's all curved? There's a plastic bag. Now the bag has built-in hands, like a built-in glove. So you can actually grab a new filter, put it in the bag, exchange these two filters, and replace it with the new one. The same thing for this TETA carbon unit. The bag, and there's a whole procedure for this, goes on here with the strap, and there's a very specific, detailed procedure which you go through to actually change these filters. But all the filters that I'm using for the shelters I design are long term. They're not 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. They're usually 1 year, sometimes 2. So if you're going to be going in and out of the shelter, you need to be able to service everything.